Hi, good morning. It's Jim from maverickstar Observatory. Been sitting here thinking before I talk about some of these events to you guys. Obviously, you've noticed a little bit of a theme. Obviously, from what you're seeing on the screen, you'll get an idea of what is coming up in this video. But before we get into that, as usual, big thanks to those few people that are supporting our observatory. It's not just matters that come up in our daily lives that we talk about on this channel. We do run an observatory that is at this current moment collecting data pretty much all around the world at the moment, and then we relay that back to you guys on our website and in some of these videos as well. But like I said, there's been a bit of a theme that's been going on, and I wanted to offer a little bit of light on a possible outcome, and I'll talk about that in this video. But there is a big problem. There is a possibility we can change things, but it's getting people all to work together. And it isn't too long in our history where we were shown what I'm going to talk about actually worked. I might as well get into that actually right now. Obviously, one of the biggest things that we notice taking place right now is a lot of censorship, and what these organisations all around the world and governments all around the world don't particularly want, and it's clear to see this, is organised protests taking place. And that's why they're censoring all sorts of the social media right now, because they don't want people chatting, sharing like-minded thinking and doing something about it. And the momentum of people doing something about it is slowly getting crushed because of the censorship and the laws. And they like to show now on the TV, in the mainstream media, people being suppressed and not being allowed to protest in a peaceful manner, especially when you've got police running at them with the riot shields and clobbering them with the batons and shooting them with tear gas to control these people. So we know what it is they don't want us to do, but what is the reason behind that? And I think it's because they know what they're going to do next isn't something that we're going to like, and it's going to cause the reaction for people to get together on social media sites and go out there and protest against it. But what is it but then if we go a little bit further into this fractal, if you want to call it that, what is it that they actually want? And in order to get that, what are they prepared to do to control the response as a another result of them getting what they want? I think it comes down to just money at the end of the day. And at the same time as taking that money off people, it is also a matter of controlling the anger at the same time, because they know what they want is going to upset people, but they've got to control that first and then take it, and then they can have their way. And if we look at 2007, 2008, the big crash of everything, a few people made a lot of money, many millions of pounds out of that crisis, on the back clearly of hundreds of thousands losing everything. So we see the transfer of wealth go from the many all the time to the few. It's just clearing the situation up so you can understand where it is, all this is leading to, why there is so much control, why they want to control, what people think and say and do. And they obviously don't want protests, because protests can lead to them losing their positions, and also at the same time that ability to take whatever it is that they have set out to do so. We've seen, I think, a concerted effort globally right now to strip millions of people of their wealth and pass it over again, as we've seen all the time, to a few people. Now, I said there was a glimmer of hope in all of this, and there really is, guys, because not so long back in our history, there was a country that was facing a lot of suppression from Russia, and it was the communism. And we are in no way, to me, no different times as what Poland was in. We're seeing the very same tactics used. We're not seeing, and Germany as well was another country that was, invading Poland, but what they managed to do, Poland, and this should be a glimmer of hope for us all, and you know, I'll explain how they did it, is they actually was the first country to push communism out of its boundaries, and it set off a chain reaction which broke the Soviet Union at the time. You know, a lot of other countries followed suit, and what it was they did, and this is why it isn't going to be very easy, because we've seen this is obvious what they've done. What Poland did, how they did it, was by strikes, defiance, creating unions and uprising. Now, they know that this can lead to the end of communism in this day and age through the history of how certain you know, countries and unions like the Soviet Union lost its power. So they are going to be on it like they are today, you know, stopping people communicating, and you know, these ideas spreading like wildfire, because they then soon get out of control, and before you know it, you have millions of people on the street, and that threatens governments. And you know, it really does need to happen, because what the governments are doing now is using the actual framework of governance to, you know, strip the wealth and pass it from the money, middle class, poor people, and even some of the rich people that aren't in their cliquey group, over to just a few people that, you know, want to stockpile more billions in their accounts. And you know what, I don't need to mention even the names of these people, but don't you find it odd that the leaders of some of these countries are actually billionaires, and by stroke of luck, we saw these as the best people to take the role of governing, you know, our countries. I don't think there's any coincidence that they're billionaires. I could mention easily some names, but you know, we've got to realise something, that the further we go down the road from this point on, things are not going to get better. You need to know that. And you know, I bet you there is a lot of elderly people that were still alive in the Second World War, witnessing what was going on, can definitely relate to what I'm talking about right now, and say, Gene, you're absolutely on the ball with this. You know, that the censorship is to stop people, you know, sharing ideas, you know, talking about the suppression and the poverty which is increasing globally, and the problems, the real problems that governments should be handling, and they're not. But it seems, you know, that what you talk about when things like, you know, the Germans were burning the literature, and then we see, you know, these media and you know, social media sites like Twitter, Facebook and YouTube, you know, shutting down the topic before it even got live. And you know, I'll give you an example. I used to watch a guy called what's his name? I'll come back to it. He's very popular on YouTube, Stefan Molyneux. I used to watch him, and I managed to catch a video of his. He was being interviewed by someone recently about, you know, him losing his channel, having, you know, millions of views. I think he had 1 million subscribers, and you know, he woke up one morning with a simple message. You know, it's bad thinking that you're sharing, and you know, all his stuff had gone. But you know, that's just one example of where we're going. And I'll give you another example. You probably watched a few channels about probably 8 years ago, 10 years ago, that used to get massive amounts of views. We called it then the video going viral. You know, one video would do 10,000 views, and then all of a sudden it would reach 100,000 views. And I had a couple of videos that did do that. They went viral, and you don't seem to see this anymore, videos going viral. And it makes me wonder what's happened there. Is the algorithms stepped in before the topic got hot? It picked up on it, was increasingly warming at some point, and then kicked in and started to narrowband the traffic going to that channel, and even, you know, remove it perhaps from the server, or even, you know, not make the video run, you know, just cause interference. in the acceleration of that video becoming popular. You don't see that no more. And that's why I said in a video a couple of days ago, I think what we can do here is, just like we're seeing on the bigger scope of things with the subject of censorship, we can also transfer that over to the algorithms that run on YouTube by testing the algorithm, seeing which it responds to, and then we get an idea of where the agenda is. But I'm pretty sure what the agenda is to control like-minded ideas, which is illegal really, and against human rights, because it's restricting information which everybody according to the human rights should be entitled to, and freedom of speech and thought. And I showed you that was part of the human rights. So that's where we're going. Just to answer a quick question, someone said to me the other day in the comment section, what's your thoughts on Extinction Rebellion? Well, if you saw here in the UK on the news, Extinction Rebellion was protesting in Westminster, London, I believe, and they were getting carted off by the lorry load. I think there was over 150 arrests, and the reason for them being arrested was not that there was protesting. It really was the reason, if me and you know the truth. It was because of the COVID-19. See how handy that is, COVID-19. So if you knew, so I'm just going to put this back now. First of all, why I don't agree with them, because they believe that CO2 is driving the climate, and it's the increase in CO2 that's causing the problems. Where we've talked about this on the channel. I mean, I bet you're not even the person that is running it, Dr. Gail Gibbs, I think her name is, or whatever. I bet she hasn't even got a CO2 meter. Something you can buy for £100 and test how much CO2 is actually in the atmosphere, because here where we do it, some days it goes up to 140 parts per million, and there they are protesting about this when they don't know the actual facts of what CO2 does to the actual environment and the atmosphere before that. But the only thing I can say is that we're in definitely low levels of CO2 compared to historical measurements of atmospheric gases through core samples. We know how much was there, and the only thing that will happen is that all the greenery, vegetation on this planet will thrive as a result of there being more carbon in the atmosphere, and we can take that level right up to 1,000 parts per million. And in case you think I'm joking about this, well, just have a look at what these professional and manufacturing greenhouses do. They actually increase the level of CO2 in the atmosphere of the greenhouse, and the plants thrive as a result of that. Now, that is the exact same thing what would happen, but for us to get it to that point from here would be almost impossible to achieve. We're going to struggle to see CO2 levels go beyond 700 parts per million, and that is backed up probably by lots of scientists. To get those levels even above 500 would require a colossal amount of carbon monoxide going into the atmosphere. So in short, guys, that's why I don't really support what Extinction Rebellion groups do. I think it's a bit of a waste of time, and obviously they're not going to get too far with it, because they're getting carted away every 5 minutes now under the law of COVID-19 that has been introduced. You can't congregate in groups more than 30 people. So I wouldn't be surprised if the police arrested Gail Gibbs for organising, the movement in London. I do understand one thing, that okay, it can't be if there was arguing about deforestation and things like that, I'd have some support for that. But for CO2 and the wanting to reduce it to zero, which is impossible, and the other thing as well is prime ministers and presidents of other countries like India have said, look, when our people have the luxury that the people in your country have, then we'll talk about reducing CO2 levels. So what I'm saying is, even if you reduce it in one part of the country or in a couple of countries, you make it greener, you're not going to be able to control those countries that are going to still, because they're in early stages of their industrial advancement, you're not going to stop them putting CO2 into the atmosphere. So it's a bit of a pointless exercise, just a couple of countries doing it, unless it's a global effort. And I know there is obviously a lot of people that are of the opinion that there is a move now to try and globally control the world and its population and and the economics of that. And it can't be a coincidence that we see protests going global, like the Black Lives Matter protests, and COVID-19. We're seeing the massive restrictions being downloaded to us, in the fact we can't travel. We've had a lot of freedom of movement taken away from us, and I'm just really surprised that the world inhabitants have put up with it for so long as they have. I don't know why they have gone along with it to start with, but as a result, what we're seeing is we're seeing a transfer of wealth again, guys. That's the bottom line. When you filter through everything, what is the last thing that drops through the filter paper? And that is a transfer of wealth. And then if you go a little bit further up the filter, we'll see they censored people because they knew what was coming next. People weren't going to be happy with. And of course, if you're going to lose all your livelihood, your business and everything else, of course you're not going to be happy. But then they put the censorship in place to stop you doing something about it, and then getting in touch with people to get together to do something about it. It's obvious and clear the direction of where this is all going and why. And it's very sad, isn't it? And the other thing is that we're not at any point equilibrium with this. These restrictions in our freedoms are going to get further infringed, and nobody's going to do too much about it for a couple of reasons. First of all, the ideas has been censored. So if you've got if you're in the opinion that you want to go to the streets and protest about it, first of all, you can't because of COVID-19 and gathering in large numbers, unless you try and be sneaky and say, okay, we're all going to separate by 1 metre or 2 metres whilst we're protesting. But when you look at the protests that take place, they never do this. And you could say also, we'll protect ourselves with masks and things like that. But then you've still got the police that are going to sit there on the sidelines, wait for people to break the rules, and then they're going to start going in on everybody and arresting them. We're living in a very socialist system that is taking us back to communism, guys. And with all these people that are losing their jobs and being paid by the government, this is exactly what happened in the days of the Soviet Union when it was thriving. And of course, even back then, there was a lot of contraband that you weren't supposed to have, and this is what's going to be unrolled next. You're not going to be able to be talking about things like why the government are doing what they're doing and how they're doing it and how they're getting away with it. And we're seeing that already. With the censorship that's taking place. So it's very, very sad, and there is something we can do about it. We can create more unions. We can do more strikes. We can defy the people that are trying to oppress ourselves, and we can slowly create uprisings and change it. And proof of that is Poland did it. Even when its back was broken, Poland did it and showed us that the way they did it and how we can do it today. It's just a matter of when people all agree. We've had enough. We have had enough. Now, for a lot of people, that will be the ones that are losing the houses next month. When the government allow the court system to, I think, go in on a Section 12 and a Section 8, which is mandatory eviction because there hasn't been rent paid for over 2 months. And that is the law in this country, and there is no argument against mandatory eviction, and that is what will take place, and those people will lose their properties. And then we're going to see the government furlough scheme end, and as a result of that, people will not be getting any financial support, and it will cause a second wave, is a key word at the moment, a second wave of people to lose their properties and their finances. I just want to say, before I end this video, I was going out to meet someone yesterday in the city of Birmingham here in the UK, and I walked past this humongous queue of people. Obviously it was not abiding by the 1 metre rule, and I completely understand why. It's because they was homeless, and the reason why they was queuing up is because there was a charity set up, like a street kitchen, that was feeding these people. It was just shocking to walk past and see something in this country, which is new to this country, that would be more prevalent in these Middle Eastern countries where poverty is even greater. I was just shocked, and it's probably going to happen to a lot more people in the coming months in this country. And we're going to see people not just with their partner but with their kids queuing up for a plate of food to keep them going. And then we are going to see, as we've started to see an increase already in the UK, people on the streets. And this is something the government don't want people talking about, because it's going to get people really angry, and are we not going to say to ourselves, how long before we're there with them? I can tell you, we're going to see a lot more suppression. We're going to see a lot more rules take away freedoms. And now is the time. Honestly, it is a better time now to act than wait till the time when we get pissed off and we've had enough. It's like, I can give you another analogy, right? You're in the jungle and you've got a pocket full of rice, and the best thing for you to do is not rely on the fact that you've still got a pocket of rice, is to go out and try and hunt and gather and use that pocket of rice as a backup. Because once you use and extinguish all that rice, then you are in a dangerous situation, because you have to then at that point get a meal every day. Otherwise you face starvation. What will happen with your body is it will slowly run down, and then eventually you won't have the energy to go out and hunt, and you'll very likely die of either dehydration or starvation. So what we're seeing right now is an opportunity to do something about it. And we can still talk, even though as soon as the algorithms pick up on these things, they are going to shut the traffic down, as we have seen happening even on this channel. I'm going to leave it at that, guys. There was another topic. I'll just quickly go into that. I don't want to keep you too long. I know you've got busy things to do, but I've noticed something happening on YouTube with a few of the people that I subscribe to, and a few of the people that you subscribe to that send the link to me. There seems to be a common direction that we are all narrating to at the moment. Us lot, here at the observatory, I'm definitely doing it. I'm showing you these things, that censorship, because it's now starting to affect me, and it's starting to affect everybody else. But the other thing we're talking about is the increase in corruption by these organisations, these big organisations, and how they are now, it is becoming so clear how they use their tools of trade to control. And I just think it's nice, because we are all coming together on the same thoughts, and obviously I will just say this, these things that are taking place haven't just come out by the blue for no reason or just by mistake or coincidence. This is 100% singularity. Yeah, this was meant to happen. This was not by mistake. This was definitely on somebody's agenda, and they are pushing the plan forward, and that plan is in place and working. So there's a link down there, guys, if you want to help support our observatory. Steve, massive thank you for you and your contribution yesterday, and everybody else that has helped this week, Susan, Doug. It's always the same people, and just a big thanks. It's keeping us going. That's all there is to it. But it would be great if a few more people would just cross the line and say, it's time to start supporting these guys, because they are getting flack now come across the open war ground, and it's obvious if you haven't noticed. The only other thing to say, guys, is you take care of yourselves, take care of your family, and I'll be back at some point. As always, bye for now.